the bases dropped on another edition of Soccer Down here. To Tuesday, the ConcaChampions is back. MLS teams are playing competitive matches tonight in the CONCACAF Champions League. Yeah, the UEFA Champions League's back this afternoon as well. That's a big deal. We'll talk about that too, but we're going to get into ConcaChampions with Dylan Butler at 9:30. NYC and Montreal in official competitive matches tonight. Talk about that. We'll talk about Cavalli and Haiti, and it looks like they are not going to be able to participate. We'll give you more of the backstory. This is not an Ala Walenze kind of situation where they waited to the last minute to ask for help. This is a little bit different. It's really unfortunate for Cavalli. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to participate, according to reports this morning. Got all kinds of news and rumors and moves made yesterday around MLS. We've got Jarrett Smith for, 23 more minutes?
Roughly?
Well, how excited are you about the ConcaChampions, Jarrett?
The fever is back, y'all. The fever is back. We should all embrace it.
Yes, I agree. New York City and Santos of Costa Rica is our 8 o'clock game, FS2 and 2-day NA. And then Montreal at Santos Laguna in the second game. John, are you excited?
I'm always excited about the ConcaChampions. I'm excited about any kind of international/regional competition. It's always fun to see the ConcaChampions because it's almost like the raising of the curtain on the calendar year and all the competitions because it involves MLS sides, and we get to see that little bit of a window too. So thoroughly excited. 2 thumbs up, sir. Yes.
First official games of 2022 for MLS teams. Santos of Costa Rica come into this. They're hosting New York City. They are not so great in the Clausura, 1-2-1. Only 2 goals scored, but only 3 conceded. They were the highest scoring team in the Apertura. Ronnie Dyla talking about their style of play. So they're very direct, good in crosses, good in winning the second balls and playing from that. Have to be disciplined to be up for the game and the fight. We have to play our style offensively. So we get them to move and create the chances we need to win the game. No Alfredo Morales tonight. He tested positive for COVID during their preseason camp in Mexico. He's out. Keaton Park is back from his late season surgery in 2021. No Anton Tinnerholm. He's not going to be back till the summer with his surgery last year. I mean, Jarrett, this is pretty much the NYC team. Jesus Medina out, maybe a bigger role for guys like Tyler Magno, for Thiago Martins in as a center back as well. But pretty much the NYC team that won MLS Cup not that long ago. They do still have Tati Castellanos as well. River Plate reportedly still trying to get a deal done, but they haven't budged off of their $10 million-ish kind of offer. And Ronnie Dyla said he wants Tati Castellanos to stay and help them win the CONCACAF Champions League. If he does, do you think this is a team that can win the CONCACAF Champions League?
I feel like they can. I feel like they would have the depth to be able to do so. And then, the raw talent. I mean, this is something we want to see in these opportunities where you get a team that brings it together at the end of the season. They win MLS Cup. They have a really good run. Great. Not a lot has changed here. You've maintained continuity. You didn't change managers. So you should, be able to hit the ground, at least speed walking. It is tough because you are facing other teams that are in the middle of their seasons, and that's never easy. We've watched Atlanta go through you kind of have to play hopscotch with it, as you're trying to get up to speed against teams that you feel like you're better than, but they're in the middle of the season. That makes a world of difference.
It does. Santos has played 4 games in the Clausura. They're a team that, I think luckily NYC gets a team like this, John, that's direct, that's, a little more simple in style of play. They haven't built a lot of offensive chemistry with only 2 goals in 4 games. It's a team that you kind of know what you're going to have to do. It's not something that you need a lot of time to prepare for. It's something you just need to have the fight and be up for doing. And they don't have to win this first leg either to get through in the series. Now, their second leg is not going to be in New York. It's going to be in Los Angeles. That's not ideal, but New York City should be able to manage this against not one of the heavyweights at Costa Rica.
Right. And when you look at this, I think that it serves that good purpose for NYCFC, where you can get out of the blocks. It's a team that you should be able to take care of. You get to kind of work your way into the season with a matchup like this in the first round as you're chasing a CONCACAF Champions League title. And I think that it can serve NYC pretty well. I mean, obviously, you go into these matchups and you go into these road environments. It's obviously not anything that you can take for granted. You still have to go in and take care of business. But I think that it serves NYCFC well to have a matchup like this, where you know what's coming and you should be able to handle it in this first round, kind of like what we would have anticipated with a Revs Cavalli match, where you know what you're getting. You're a superior opponent for them, and it gets you into a rhythm of playing matches early on. And I was thinking the same thing with NYC here. It gives them that good first step coming out of the blocks.
Different level. Cavalli, if they are able to play, much lower quality of competition. Nation League, much lower quality than the Costa Rican League. But yeah, it's a fairly comfortable round of 16 tie. Now, Montreal doesn't have that tonight at 10 o'clock. They face Santos Laguna, but they're not facing a strong Santos Laguna team right now. Santos Laguna is 0-4-1 in the Clausura. They lost 3-2 to Club America over the weekend. They've conceded 13 goals in 5 games. I mean, Jarrett, we get into these situations where you draw the Mexican team in the round of 16 and you're generally very unhappy, but Montreal gets the best situation possible where they're facing a Santos Laguna team that's at the bottom of the Liga MX table. They're looking to build some momentum, but Montreal is facing, the weakest possible Mexican team they could face right now.
I love that this happens every year, where we always end up with one team out of Mexico that's in ConcaCaf Champions League, and you're thinking, oh, man, we got to face a Liga MX side. Who is it? Oh, they're in last place. They've completely imploded from last year. Everything is in the upside down for them, so we might be okay. I love that it happens every year with at least one team from Mexico. It has to be a stressful life as a fan of, hey, we won the Apertura or Clausura. What happened next year? Oh, we were in the bottom. We were up there for man, Mexican relegation's a different animal, but we were up there for relegation territory in a normal year. As far as Montreal goes, I'm done doubting Montreal. I tried that last year. It didn't feel very good because they just kept winning. Montreal's going to be a tough out. It's a fun team, and I look forward to seeing what they can do in that environment. I mean, because you're just going to Santa. I mean, it's still going to be tricky. It's not a walkover by any stretch of the imagination, but it should be fun because doubting Montreal at your own risk is the only thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Montreal is not as strong of a team in general on paper as Santos Laguna, in my opinion. But they're facing a Santos Laguna that is not in good form. John, you follow Liga MX. It's been one of the stories in Mexico is Santos Laguna's lack of form in the Clausura. Chivas will always get the headlines, and they're very up and down this year. But Santos Laguna being at the bottom of the table, not what was expected when the season started. You're muted, John.
Not at all.
That's how important his words were.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Very.
You sit
I'm the one with internet problems this morning.
No, I just have problems. When you look at Santos Laguna, traditionally, they're that team that's going to be right up there, top 5. You're thinking that it's going to be locked in, that they're going to be a part of the discussion. But when you've given up 13 goals in your first 5 matches in Liga MX play here in the Clausura, and you're only averaging a little over 1 right now, you're at a -7 in goal difference. And you've lost 4 in a row going into this particular matchup tonight. It's a stunner to see just how poorly they've come out of the blocks. And it could be an opportunity here to pounce on a side that is really, really struggling right now. But once again, it's not something that you can just sit there and take for granted and go in and sit there and say, yeah, they've lost 4 in a row. They're hemorrhaging goals, this and that. You got to go in and just take care of business. But yeah, the idea that Santos Laguna has given up the most goals in the Clausura through the first 5 matches, that has been a big stunner so far.
Jarrett, I'm going to ask you this, and then I'm going to try to reconnect and see if it helps my connection a little bit while you're talking. Which MLS team out of the 5 in the tournament, the 4 that qualified through MLS and Montreal who qualified through the Canadian Championship, which one do you think has the best opportunity to win the CONCACAF Champions League?
Oh, well, now one at the table. Let's take a look. Let's go through this. New York City. I like New York City's chances here. Like we talked about, New York City maintains continuity from last year, and I think that's an important thing, John, to be able to run it back from last year as closely as you can. Tata Castellanos is, of course, a big part of that. Being able to run him back out there without too much trouble, it certainly helps. Now, as far as Montreal goes, yeah, I'm not gonna. Like I said, I'm not going to doubt Montreal because every time I do, they go out there and they just start winning games that you think they shouldn't win. I don't know how I feel about Colorado. They got Comunicaciones. I don't know how I feel about Colorado in general. I don't know how you guys feel about Colorado. I'm impressed with Colorado as an entity. I don't know how that translates to Champions League. I'm interested because it's not like a star power team, but I'm very curious for a team that does well in the regular season like that to see how they do in this situation. Seattle, I think they'll take care of Motagua. Seattle might be better than they were last year. New England, I think I saw that was a Cavalier is not gonna be able to play. They're gonna have to forfeit that match.
We'll get to that. That's not official yet, but we'll
okay.
Hold
Thank
that
you for clarifying
thought.
Then. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. There were unofficial rumors that they will not be able to play that match due to visa issues. But New England, whether they play that or not, hey, look, New England just set a points record last year, and you want to tell Gustavo Bo he can't win himself CONCACAF Champions League? Because I don't really want to tell him that. Aside from that, Bruce Arena winning CONCACAF Champions League is the darkest timeline for all the haters.
They will hate that. They absolutely will. They'll be drinking all the haterade if that happens. I'm not going to be Debbie Downer like Burned to say that Liga MX is a step above. I think for some teams it is. I think in quality, when you get deeper into the roster, it is. But you're generally not playing all of your depth. So, I think sometimes that gets overrated a bit. It gives you more options off the bench when you need to go change the game. If you're one of the Liga MX teams, I think the mentality is the biggest thing. And it's something that has to improve from MLS teams. And some of that is the players lower down the roster. I don't think it's as much of a quality issue as it is a mentality and experience issue. Coming into this, I feel like New York City has that kind of mentality to be able to go and win tough games on the road in CONCACAF. I feel like Seattle has that kind of mentality. They have the kind of players. They have the coaching staff that can do it. New England, I think they can. I think. Also, questioning a little bit about what happened in the postseason last year, because it's not quite the same, but it's similar. Okay, where is that for them? I do think Gustavo Bo is the kind of player who can lead you through some of this stuff. I think Carlos Heel is the type of player who can lead you through some of this stuff. You've got to get top performances from your top guys if you're an MLS team, because you don't have those options to turn to in the same quantity as the Liga MX teams. Colorado, I worry about the mentality. Yes, they had to wait, just like New England did, for a long time before they played in the postseason, but they weren't able to get it done. I don't know who that person is that puts them on their back for Colorado. I'm not sure. That's a bit of a challenge. Montreal, I think, is the weakest. I mean, I'm not really trying to disparage Montreal for where they are in this tournament, but I think they're the weakest and they have the toughest matchup. They can get through Santos Laguna. They can, but they're going to need big performances from Romel Kyoto, from Jordy Mihailovic, and that backline that I worry about a little bit. The Cavalli situation, let's get caught up on this. Let me try to say this again. I've said it on the Twitch pitch. My internet, for some reason, is stuttering this morning. There's really nothing I can do about it because it's the connection. Luckily, the way we do the show, everybody else will stay connected. So if for some reason I get booted and have to come back, the show will continue. So don't freak out. But yeah, I tried the lawnmower thing. I tried to crank up the motor. I've tried to tell the hamster to run faster on the wheel. Nothing's working. So we will hope that it clears up. I'm blaming the people working in the yard outside and messing everything up. I'm blaming them. Cavalli, here's what we know at this point. John Arnold had an update, and it's John Arnold, somebody you need to follow from CONCACAF if you want to get the true story about some of these situations. He made it clear this is not like the Alawalense situation where they waited till the last minute to get things done. Also a little bit different situation with still risks due to COVID, but also health and safety of clients and staff at the U.S. Embassy. If you don't know the situation about Haiti, they are still reeling after the assassination of their president in July of 21. There's still confusion, debate over who's next to the succession process, violence, kidnappings from gangs. The embassy is open, but it is very limited in its activity. This is not mismanagement from Cavalli, according to John Arnold. I know that's gone around that they waited too long to start doing things. According to John Arnold, who I trust immensely when it comes to CONCACAF issues, it's not down to mismanagement. They're trying everything they can. They're waiting on these visa appointments to get things done. They tried to delay it a couple of days to give them a little more time, but reports this morning, Seth, who is the senior editor of the Bent Musket on SB Nation, said that Cavalli defender Emerson T-Bear tells Seth that Cavalli will have to forfeit both of their CCL games. John Arnold had reported that if they were able to get to the U.S. by Wednesday, they would be able to play, but if not, then it was going to be a forfeit. CONCACAF has tried to help. They did look at hosting options in Jamaica and the Dominican Republic, but they weren't able to do that. If you want to get into maybe waiting too late, that could be part of it. But that would be the plan B or C after the embassy wasn't able to get things done fast enough. CONCACAF has tried to help. The Revs have tried to help as well. They've written support for visa requests for the players and the staff. I do think CONCACAF has to get out in front of these situations and be aware of things much, much earlier than they do. And I put that on CONCACAF more than the clubs who might not have the experience with this. Cavalli isn't a club that's been in CONCACAF Champions League in a long time, if ever. But this one is a very complicated one. I don't think it's mismanagement from Cavalli. I think with Alawalense, it was mismanagement. They waited too late to ask for help. This one is a little bit different. But again, according to the senior editor of the Bent Musket on SB Nation, these games will not be played, and it will be a forfeit, and the Revs will move into the quarterfinals without playing.
Obviously a disappointment there, but I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen CONCACAF get out in front of this issue and these timetables a lot sooner than it appears that they are. Because if you're looking to preserve a competition, knowing the context of what's going on in Haiti, then you'd like to sit there and be a helpful agent in trying to sit there and come up with the plan B, plan C sooner than we seem to be hearing about it. But a lot of things that Cavalli have had to go through as individuals and as a club to get to this point. And obviously it's very, very disappointing for them because of this moment that could be there for the club and that we're this close to having it not happen. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that CONCACAF should have been part and parcel to getting out in front of this a lot sooner.
Yeah, they should have. But I mean, I don't know how much more they could have done here outside of other solutions. I think the visa process with the embassy in Haiti is the biggest issue. And I don't know if CONCACAF could have fixed that. And the Revs shouldn't have to give up a home game either. You know, if Cavalli can't get into the U.S., the Revs shouldn't play 2 games away from Foxborough either. I don't know what the solution is here. I do think there should have been at least a greater effort, at least greater communication to make it seem like there was a greater effort. Maybe is a better way to put it in terms of finding this. But I don't know what else could have been done outside of starting the visa process a whole lot earlier. And frankly, I don't know when you could have started it, without knowing what the embassy situation is. It's functioning, but it's also not as functioning as it has been in the past. And a lot of that is down to the safety of the staff, because it's not exactly a safe place to be at times for U.S. citizens. So it's a very unfortunate situation. I hope that Emerson Thibert saying to the bent musket that the games aren't happening, I hope that is premature. I hope they can find a way, but it's not looking good because they're running out of time to get into the U.S. by Friday. Jarrett, final thoughts on ConcaChampions tonight. These games, I think, are a little bit of a, I don't know how much of a, I'm trying to think of the right terminology here. It's not a referendum on MLS because these are game ones of these, and these are on the road. We know how difficult it can be on the road in Costa Rica, definitely in Mexico. But what do you think is a successful night for MLS?
Getting draws on the road.
Yeah.
If you can. If you can win games on the road, great. Get draws on the road and then win your games at home. It makes for a successful formula.
Yeah.
To me, it is that simple. To say that it's not always that easy. I realize that's, it's like saying, hey, get out on those skates and do a triple axel. It's no big deal. Just say it and do it. But it can be tricky. But yeah, go out there and get a draw and win your games at home.
Yeah.
This is a strong. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is a strong group of teams. Like I said, NYC maintains their continuity coming into this year. God forbid it. If Hebert is a functioning human being on a soccer field for New York City and an option, New York City looks even more intimidating as an option to deal with, especially if you're dragging teams into Yankee Stadium. Which, sure, why not? Like the Yankees would be using it. Thanks, Rob Manfred. It's an interesting environment to drag teams into.
Hold on.
Are they not playing there?
Burned, it's not that New York City doesn't care. They're not taking the competition seriously. That's why they're not playing at Yankee Stadium. CONCACAF doesn't let them because of the pitch size. Citi Field,
we got to put up with it. So should the rest of CONCACAF.
Nope, CONCACAF has a higher standard. Citi Field doesn't work either. Red Bull Arena is the only one in the area there that would be suitable, and they are doing some, I think, relaying of the pitch, what have you, ahead of the opener for the Red Bulls. So it was unavailable for next week. It's not a lack of care about the tournament. They don't have the venue. Now, you can get into the lack of care about the venue. That's a whole different conversation. But, yeah, they didn't choose to play in California just because. There's a little more to it. I want to be fair to NYC in this case. But, yeah, you're not dragging anybody to Yankee Stadium, Jared.
Which is a damn shame because I think you should be able to drag everyone in CONCACAF into Yankee Stadium. If we have to put up with it in the league and in the playoffs, then I'm fine dragging teams from all over Central America into Yankee Stadium and laughing at them. But since that's not the case, even if it's a level field, New York City is a good team. They're not dependent on the size of Yankee Stadium to be successful, and I think they will do just fine. But you have Seattle, who might be better. You have the Revs, who still have a lot of talent. Montreal and Colorado are wild cards. I don't know what to expect from them. It's a strong group, and I hope everyone goes out, gets their road draws and their home wins, and we move on to the next round.
Quick one from Tafka as Dylan Butler is about to join us. Do we know what the new format for the Club World Cup is and how CCL feeds into it going forward? No, we don't know any of that right now. There's been so much talk about Club World Cup and 2-year World Cups and all of this stuff that we don't really know yet. So don't even worry about that right now. Don't even get your head spinning on that one because we don't know. I think the Club World Cup expanded idea every few years was a dumb one to begin with. We'll see what they do in general going forward. Jarrett, we might see you later. We might not.
You might see me later. You might not.
Okay. Well, we might or might not. We'll talk to you at least tomorrow. We know that much.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
We will see Jarrett later probably, and we will see this fella right about now. Dylan Butler with us. How are you doing, Dylan?
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing okay. My connection is kind of killing me, and my yard people in my complex are kind of killing me because they're camped outside my window right now. So not a happy morning over here. But it's ConcaChampions Champions morning, so that makes up for it. And we've been talking about that all morning. NYC on the road in Costa Rica. Pretty much a full squad. No Morales tonight. Keaton Parks is back. We know Tinnerholm's going to be a longer-term thing. They haven't sold Tati Castellanos yet. What are your expectations for NYC in this tournament?
Expectations in the CCL are a dangerous thing, right? for MLS teams. That said, what's the saying, right? Hope springs eternal. So here we are again. It's a fresh competition, and I think you've got to put, at least among the MLS teams, NYCFC and probably Seattle right at the top of the teams that can maybe finally break through, right? I mean, I saw a cool graphic on Twitter, which I can give the guys some props, but it was breaking down all the MLS teams, right, in the CCL, and you had those 4 teams that made the final and 7 others made the semifinals. And it's been nothing but misery to this point. It's been a lot of all Liga MX finals. At the very least, we hope that's different this year. And certainly, I was thinking as I was kind of preparing for this show, the Herb Brooks speech, right, from Miracle, right? Like, replace the Russians with Liga MX, right? Like, we've seen enough of them. It's our time. So let's hope it finally is a breakthrough. And what a great time it would be, right on the heels of an expanded league, Leagues Cup, and really sort of, I think it would really help push this kind of rivalry, right, between the leagues and especially when there's added competitions coming up.
So then, Dylan, taking the Miracle analogy to the next stage here, who, from an MLS perspective, would be the Mike Eruzionis? I think we know who the Jim Craigs are in this situation because we follow the keepers as much as we do. But who are the Mike Eruzionis in this situation if this miracle is going to happen for MLS this time around?
Yeah, I mean, you could pick a few, right? I mean, at least in terms of his goal scoring, right? Like, and a big goal. I think NYCFC, at least for the time being, keeping Tati is a real sort of statement on their expectations in this tournament, right? Like, they could have sold him, even though maybe it's not met their valuation of the player. They could have sold him certainly for $8-9 million, right? There's talk right now River Plate are in for maybe a $10 million bid, but they've kept him here. And I think by doing that, it says, listen, we're going to take this competition seriously. So when you have the reigning Golden Boot winner, he could be that guy. I think you can never, ever count out a Raul Ruiz-Diaz when he's healthy in a big competition. He always seems to step up to the plate in that. So I think those are the 2 biggest. And then, of course, look, Buxa, Bo, Heel, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys in New England you can maybe put that tag on as well. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. I think longest shot, maybe you would say, would be Montreal, right? Because they're the first to take on a Liga MX opponent. That said, it's never easy to go to Stade Olympique, right? It's in the winter. So and they have a good history too against Liga MX teams. So listen, it's all these fun narratives, I think, that make this competition so exciting.
I want to get into Montreal a little bit. I feel like it's a team that we haven't talked about a whole lot coming into the season. They haven't really been all that active coming into the season.
They haven't had to.
Alistair Johnston. Yeah, they haven't had to. I think that's the key here. It's a good lineup, probably something like James Pantemis, who was a very good goalkeeper last year. Impressed me the times we saw him. Curious to see what they do in the back. It looks like they're shifting to more of a kind of 4-man midfield with not wingers, but 3 center backs and the wing backs. We saw Matthew Chouanier play as a wing back. He'd been a winger through most of his career. Johnston would be a perfect fit for the other side of that. You've got Kamal Miller, one of the top center backs in CONCACAF, I think is fair to say. Rudy Camacho comes back to the club. Joel Waterman was good last year. Karifa Yao coming off of a good year in the CPL. And you've got a lot of different kind of options up top. Can any of these guys, like your Kyotos, like your Joaquin Torres, Mason Toy, Bjorn Janssen was a little bit of a disappointment last year at times. Sanusi Ibrahim was good at times. Can any of them take the next step? Because I think they're very solid. I think this is a very solid team, a difficult team to beat. But can they, I think, maybe be better than solid? Do they have that player that can make them better than just a difficult team to beat?
Yeah, listen, I think in Johnston, it's maybe not like the biggest splash of money that we've seen, or like an Insignia or guys, who are kind of, resonating worldwide in terms of like a major acquisition. Johnston, to me, is one of the biggest, maybe a top 5 pickup this offseason, because of the role that he'll play, because of how solid he was at Nashville. He looks great with Canada as well, right? So this is a huge, I love the pickup for Montreal there to get Johnston. And yeah, I mean, I think Toy was a guy early on in last season who, Jason, to your point, that was that kind of the guy who looked like he was taking that step, right? And then obviously the injury happens, and it was unfortunate for him when he got hurt against Red Bulls, but it could be him, right? And I think it could be a few of those guys. So there's another reason for them to be optimistic, and also you bring in the kid Corbo, right, on loan from their sister club Bologna. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how he fits. They've done fairly well with those players coming across from Italy. So we'll kind of see what he can bring to the table as well. But yeah, they're maybe it's because we haven't spoken about them enough. We said it last week. I think they're a very intriguing team to me, and excited to see them kick off their season in the Champions League.
Let me go north of that particular quadrant and talk about the Revs quadrant here for a second. John Arnold has been on social media and obviously one of the top guys to pay attention to when it comes to anything CONCACAF. There's a thought right now that Cavalli may not be able to participate in the round of 16. Traditionally, and we talked about it in the first half hour, it's that chance for MLS sides to kind of get the engine warm a little bit. And they can sit there, turn the keys over, and they can sit there, and it's like, all right, so car sounds pretty good. You might need to work on this, or this. If this matchup does not happen and they're in the quadrant that they're in, with Saprissa hanging up just above them, possibly in the round of 8 or Pumas, do you think that this is a good thing for the Revs if Cavalli isn't there so they can work on their own things and get ready for a matchup of the round of 8? Or is this a bad thing because they're left to their own devices and still having to watch everything going on around them?
I would point to Exhibit A being the break they had from the regular season to the postseason last year and how well that worked for them, right? So, yeah, I mean, their whole preseason was set up to get to this point, right? So they've played their exhibition matches. They've ramped up to get to this point, and a break is not going to be good for anybody. Not at this point. So it would be really unfortunate. Look, clearly they were going to be the team to advance, but it's better to do it with 180 minutes under your belt, especially knowing that your competition is doing it, and maybe even more so because you're in preseason, right? Like you need to have a competitive match, in this case too, to push you forward. Yes, both would be at Gillette, but that I think is detrimental to New England's chances more than certainly aiding them.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need some games under their belt just to be in match rhythm and match fitness. New England does get the Josie Altidore deal over the line yesterday. Not a shock for any of us, but Altidore made his debut for Bruce Arena at 16 years old with the Red Bulls. Now he's 32 and he's back with Bruce. You know, it does open the door. I think you mentioned it last week. It opens the door for them to potentially bring in a big transfer for Adam Buxa in the summer, who was interested or talked about with moves. And if Josie Altidore can take this first half of the season, come off the bench, get fit, figure out his fit with the system, Bruce can see where he is right now, because that's the question I have is kind of, you know, what is he right now? Is he a guy who can start in this league? Is he a guy who can start every couple of weeks? But if he can be the replacement for Buxa, you bring in money, you can then go back into the market, we could be looking at another great year for the Revs.
No, I agree. I think considering the fact too that Toronto, you know, pays a portion. I think Jeff Carlisle had a great series of tweets breaking down exactly kind of how this whole thing was constructed. It was very interesting.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
Some of it is MLS rules. It sounds like it's somewhere between a normal kind of buyout, not an MLS buyout to get him off the roster, but a normal buyout where he's paid off for the rest of his deal. So he's got money up front from Toronto. But then there's the weird thing about some of the salary being paid, and he didn't have to go through the waiver process. And I don't know.
That said, though, I think, listen, it's almost a no-brainer for the Revs, right? Because you get that experience forward, and again, we've seen whether it's Leggett or Gonzalez or any number of other players who have played with Bruce before. He's bringing these guys, you know, back for the party. So there's value in him knowing the player, and I think it's kind of a no lose for the Revs because, look, you know, what are your expectations? It's not going to be playing, you know, 32 matches and 25 goals, right? So if he maybe starts, I don't know, 12 matches, right? Maybe 8 to 10 goals. I think it's still a win-win. No, I mean, especially if you keep if Buxa Bo kind of do what they do, and again, you know, if you kind of look at him as that Bunbury, it's an upgrade from Teal Bunbury, right? So there's that. And if he regains even a little bit of what he was, wow, right? Like massive for them. Obviously now the big hole that they'll try to fill in the summer window will be Matt Turner. That's a bigger question mark than I think up front. But yeah, listen, I think they're right there, right? Like I don't know if they've necessarily filled the Buchanan hole. I mean, maybe they'll do that internally, right? Or maybe they change their shape. Bruce has hinted at that as well.
That's what I'm thinking. I think Leggett's ultimately the Buchanan replacement, but doing it differently.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they're right there. You know, no doubt about it. Which is why I wish they did get these games in, because I was intrigued by them as well. You know, I mentioned NYCFC Seattle maybe being the top two because of New England's road being a little bit more difficult, but you know, it's hard to count out Bruce Arena too in big games, right? So and you know, I think the combination of, like, if you're playing CONCACAF Champions League bingo, the fact that you're in the Champions League and Bruce on the sideline, right? You know, maybe mic him up. it's always super fun to see him and his reactions on the sideline.
What's your level of confidence? We've talked about NYCFC and their quadrant, and for those filling things out in pencil or pen, it's low left. What's your level of confidence when it comes to the Colorado Rapids, which could be a matchup in the final 8 to get somebody to get an MLS side into a semifinal on the left-hand side? What's your level of confidence with the Rapids? And yes, they're playing a team out of Guatemala to start things off in Comunicaciones. What are you thinking about Colorado here?
My level of it's not as high, certainly, as an NYCFC or a Seattle, in part because, I mean, look at NYCFC's run to the Cup last year, right? on the road in New England, obviously after beating Atlanta at home, their only home playoff game. On the road New England, on the road Philly, on the road Portland, right? So they're a veteran team that's been battle tested. The same is true of Seattle, having played so many big games. Colorado isn't there yet, right? Like what I hope for Colorado, obviously, I'd like for somebody to get through, but if they ultimately don't get to the final or the semifinal, I would say I'd like them to maybe get to the semifinal or make a very good run at the quarterfinals, just because that can maybe then help them later in the season, right? Like some more big games. We saw similar to New England last year, where they had the break, they had the Thanksgiving home game, and they lost to Portland. So we're still sort of wanting to see what they are in a big game, right? So I think this is a big competition for them. But again, I'm not as bullish on them as I would be on NYCFC or Seattle.
Yeah, we've talked about mentality in these games, and I think personality on the field and in the group is very important. And Colorado has a big change in that. Mark Anthony Kaye for the full season, really the replacement for Kellen Acosta. We know Kellen is a big personality in a group. How does the chemistry change with Kaye? I mean, as a player, they're different, but I can see Kaye replacing Acosta. I get it. But I just wonder about that team in those moments. And yeah, the playoff game, even though they had a long layoff coming into it, it was an afternoon game on Thanksgiving. There's some excuses that are built in there. But yeah, this is a different level for Colorado. And I think it does kind of set the tone for them. And can they do what they did last year again? Can they be a top team in the Western Conference? I'm not so sure.
Now that said, too, what I do like about Kaye, and as it pertains to Champions League, is one, he's been there before with LAFC, right? And he's also been in these CONCACAF environments with Canada, right? So he's that sort of battle-tested guy that they will be leaning on, in a competition like this.
Yeah, good points. Good points. Acosta gave you some of that. I wonder how they change with that big change in the team.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger change than maybe we might think it is on paper. But Colorado in the West, we haven't really gotten into Seattle in any kind of depth here. We'll talk more about them on Thursday when Nico Moreno joins us. But I think Seattle maybe has the best chance to make a deep run with the talent that they have.
Yeah, I agree. And again, when you talk about major acquisitions, I think Johnston for Montreal was like that low-key one, but obviously Rusnak, a massive one. And then you also have, they almost feel like additions because of the injuries, a Ladero and a Morris, right? So,
yeah.
I think they do lose a little bit. I like Brad Smith a lot. So to me, that's a little bit of a loss there. But also Nuhu, coming off the African Cup of Nations that he had was phenomenal. You hope maybe they keep him, or if not, right, they get a good value for him. Shane O'Neill was serviceable for them, so that's a little bit of a loss there as well among their back. But he was, obviously when you look depth chart, he was like third at least on that center back depth chart. So yeah, I mean, they tick all the boxes for a deep run, right? A team that's been there before, that's arguably has the best 11, you would say, right? I know New England fans might get upset about that, but I think man for man, I still would put Seattle's 11 up against probably anybody right now. I think when you look at the other contenders, they've also lost pieces, right? Like NYCFC, we kind of glossed over, James Sands going to Rangers, and that's a big miss, man. He was a steadying presence, and he was a versatile one as well, right? So he could play as that deep holding midfielder. He can play as a center back. He even had to fill in as an outside back. So that's a loss for them. And one that Ronnie Dyla obviously addressed with the need to bring in Thiago, right, as that center back. So, New England loses Buchanan, right? So like a lot, these other teams, I think you've lost big players for them, and Seattle added, right? So they didn't really lose. They lost, some bit pieces, but they added a major one in Rusnak. So, yeah, I mean, and you even heard Garth Lagerwey talk about it, right? They're not a team that traditionally does their business in the winter window, right, but they did this time to get the whole group together, to have them ready for the full preseason, to make this run. So certainly their chips are all in for this Champions League.
What's your expectations for tonight? You look at the numbers. NYC is a road favorite against Santos in the early match, and then no real surprise, but Santos Laguna is a huge home favorite at a -175 tonight. What are your expectations tonight for CF Montreal and NYC?
Yeah, I would say I would expect a comfortable win for NYCFC, and I say that only because, again, it's the unknown of coming off a preseason, right, where you don't know what they're going to look like coming in. But from the bits and pieces that we've seen from them, with Eber coming back as well into the fold, I think he's going to be a huge addition. We spoke about it before. If he returns to the form that he had before the knee injury. So yeah, I mean, I think, and if reports are to be believed that at Costa Rica, they might be missing a few of their top players as well. So that's at maybe like a 3-1, 3-0 kind of win for NYCFC. Yeah, for Montreal, yeah, listen, Santos Laguna is the favorite, so
they're not good right now.
They are not. So I think Montreal could maybe hit them a little bit early. I think, I mean, wow, if they could somehow nick a goal in the first like 20 minutes, what that might do to this series, right? So I could see them, I could see them coming away with a result, maybe a draw, right? Like a 1-1, 0-0. I think they can get something out of this and bring it back home.
Yeah, I think they can get goals. And if they get one at least, then they're in really good position bringing it back. Because I don't see Montreal getting blown out. And I don't see it like being a 3-1 or a 4-1 kind of thing. I think they can get a goal because Santos Laguna's defense has been awful this season. And I do like Montreal's firepower. And I like Mihailovic pulling the strings. I think they can get a draw. I would be looking at that draw option on that game for sure.
And that's another option. Sorry, guys. That's another guy too that I think of. Not that he's a breakout star to us, but for a Champions League, I think I'm really excited to see Mihailovic on this level, given this opportunity. Right, we loved him as kind of that low key MVP type of guy last year. So if he can continue that in the Champions League, well, I mean, that would be such a boost for Montreal.
Yeah, he's trying to play his way into the U.S. men's national team consideration. He should be. He should be very close to that group. And if he goes into Champions League and does well, maybe we see him in this last window with Greg Berhalter's group. I want to get into a couple non-Champions League teams. Jacob Myers at the Columbus Dispatch with an article about Pedro Santos and his new role. It has been one of the kind of under-the-radar stories in MLS this offseason. They brought him in as a winger from Portugal. He's been very good. I thought he was great the year he played as a 10 when Federico Higuain was injured. Now he's going to play left back. And you look at the team for Columbus, he played some left back last year, and he was pretty good. And Caleb Porter said, coming into the year, it's like, look, we've looked at all the other options. He's the best left back we have. He's ready to embrace the role. That's really interesting for a Crew team who's got to bounce back from a bad year last year. Yeah,
definitely. And you're right? Like, I feel like it was an emergency option last year.
Yeah.
With Milton Valenzuela hurt, other injuries there as well, right? So, and then he looked good in that spot. What I like too about that is now you've got other pieces as wingers, that you could also bring in, right? So obviously, he wants his outside backs to get forward and bomb up front. And obviously, a Santos will do that. He'll give you the service as well, clearly. So, Yeah, I mean, look, if it sounded like they were trying to get Valenzuela back, it obviously didn't work out financially. And I like the idea, like we don't necessarily have to go out and find another guy if we already are pretty comfortable with what we have here. And again, what's the worst that happens out of this, right? Like it doesn't work out in the first half of the season. You go out and get a left back, right? In the summer window. So, yeah, I like it. I liked what I saw from him in that position last year too. So, I think it's definitely intriguing.
We mentioned Josie leaving Toronto. Auro is also headed to Santos now. Are we still looking at Toronto FC playing a 1-1-8 coming into this season?
This is what Jason, man, you nailed it last week, right? Like this was, if you're a Toronto fan, you kind of saw it like the 18-wheeler coming and you just couldn't get out of the way, man. Like this is a tough loss for them. I mean, they were already going to be thin at the outside backs to begin with. Now Auro going, look, Salcedo, I like it again. I like the addition of O'Neal. I think he's even an upgrade from a Gonzalez, but you've not addressed your outside backs. I don't know. Do they put a Santos-like winger at the outside backs? I don't know, man. They might have to. But when you lose Larrea and you lose Auro, I mean, that's very tough, especially this close to the start of the season. They obviously knew it would happen. They knew the negotiations going on, but I don't see the like-for-like replacement right now, and unless they've got something up their sleeve here before the start, yeah, it's I don't know necessarily who slots in on. I mean, Kamar Lawrence, obviously. Although there are rumors that he'd be out as well.
Yeah.
So it's, I think they're, probably that O'Neal, Salcedo combination at center back. But yeah, the outside backs, I have no idea.
Yeah. We've talked about roster construction a lot in the offseason, and we've been hard on Charlotte. But Toronto, yeah, they're going to go get Lorenzo Insigne in the summer. But the rest of it is kind of strange at times because goalkeeper, all right, it's going to be Bono or Westberg. I don't know which one, but they've kind of flip-flopped over the years. Bradley will make his decision. It'll be one of those two. You've got two outside backs on the roster right now, Kamar Lawrence and Luca Petrasso, who is a new player, young player from their academy. Center backs, you've got Salcedo. You've still got Mavinga. You've got O'Neal. They signed Lucas McNaughton from the CPL. Luke Singh is there as well. One of them might have to play right back. Midfield, you've lost Delgado, which I think is another big loss for them. Yeah. Michael Bradley, Alejandro Pozuelo, Jonathan Osorio, good. You've got Noble Okello, Ralph Priso in reserve roles, okay. Wingers, you don't really have a lot of options. You've got a lot of young options. You've got Jacob Schaffelberg, you've got Jaden Nelson, you've got Shaquille Marshall-Rudy. And then up top, to start the season, you've got Ayo Akinola back. They added Jesus Jimenez. They have DeAndre Kerr that they signed to a homegrown deal. They have Achara back after an injury last year. Jordan Peruzza, I thought, was a pretty good young player that they signed last year. They'll add Insigne, but it doesn't feel like a very strong overall roster right now.
Yeah, you wanted to maybe like an Achara or an Akinola. Maybe they'll go out too on the wing.
Could, yeah,
as well to because you have so many forward options, right? But you're right. I mean, it's a little bit unbalanced in terms of the build right now, right? And it's funny because it's almost like Bradley's LAFC team, not the first one because Zimmerman was there as your anchor in the back, but you put all your eggs in the attacking third basket.
Yep.
How about when teams attack you, right? And that's it could lead to some 5-3 games, some interesting games, but yeah, they've not done the business, certainly defensively, I don't think.
So basically what you're saying, you think that it's going to be a lot of overs and not well, but let me posit the other side here just for devil's advocate's sake. So yes, we anticipate that, and we can take it like Bob Bradley's old LAFC sides, where you've invested in all of your attack, and then why wouldn't the other teams, why wouldn't that opposition just sit there and just absorb all of the pressure and turn them into some of the most unattractive stuff that we've ever seen? I mean, we could see it both. I mean, we could see it both ways.
Just bomb over the top, right? Just, as soon as you get the ball, let's go deep. We'll play long ball and stretch the field on you. Yeah, why not?
I mean, look, it was a preseason friendly over the weekend, but the starting 11 from that, and we'll talk about their second group too to try to see if we can make sense of this. Bono got the start. Salcedo and Mavinga were the two center backs. I don't know who the outside backs were. I didn't get to see it. It was against Chicago. Kamar Lawrence isn't in it. Luca Petrasso played in the second 45, so I don't know. Jesus Jimenez was up top. Michael Bradley is a holding midfielder, okay, unless he played as the third center back and they went kind of 3-4-3 with it or something. You had Pozuelo, you had Schaffelberg, you had Marshall Rudy, so two of the wingers in there, left and right, with Marshall Rudy and Schaffelberg. You know, Osorio, Pozuelo, and Bradley, maybe your three central midfielders. DeAndre Kerr was in there along with Jimenez, so was it 3-5-2 kind of, but with Marshall, Rudy, and Schaffelberg as the wingers who had some defensive responsibilities? Don't know. They didn't play Kamar Lawrence, and I don't know what the situation is with him. It's gotten really quiet. There was those early rumors that he wasn't coming back. Well, he didn't play against Chicago on February 12th, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, I liked the idea of bringing him back when it happened, because having seen him super close with the Red Bulls, he was just a beast. He was a best 11 guy. He goes to Europe. That doesn't work out. And he's not been the same Kamar Lawrence that he was before, which has been unfortunate, certainly for Toronto, because he could have really filled a big void for them there and really helped solidify their defense. So.
Last one for you, because we're in stoppage time. New England Revolution have just dropped their new primary kit. Kits dropping all over the league. Which ones have grabbed your attention?
I don't know.
You don't care? You don't get into that?
I'm not a big kit reveal guy. All right, not on Champions League. Come on.
Man. Well, who's got the best kit of the Champions League teams then?
I don't know. I haven't. I haven't really delved into it.
The Revs kit is not one to get super excited about. It's pretty simple. It seems like that is the theme this year a little bit. Simplicity in the kits.
Yeah.
Everybody getting excited about the branding side of things. Not Dylan Butler. He doesn't care about that nonsense.
No. I care more about the pitch.
All right, then I'll end with this. Give us a player to watch that might be a surprise tonight from one of the two MLS teams.
Player to watch that might be a surprise.
I was thinking Rodriguez from NYC.
Yeah, Santi. That's a good.
I like Santi a lot,
because I don't know. Like, would a Talis Magno surprise you? Probably not, right? Like,
he wouldn't surprise us because he made his impression felt on Atlanta last season. Yes. But I think he might surprise some people nationally. I think either one of those guys might be a bit of a surprise. They fly under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, so that Magno would have been my guy.
Okay.
And Santi for you. And then for Montreal, he's not a surprise. I don't know why. Johnston, would he be a surprise? I don't know. Or how about too, just the way that he is in CONCACAF, and even though Honduras has been horrible, right? Like Kyoto always finds a way to step up in a big spot. So
I'm a big fan of Chouanier. I like what he's kind of turned into as a wing back. I always liked him as a player, but there wasn't room to get him on the field as a wing back. He's kind of found a niche there. I'm not sure if that's the way they're still going to play. It looks like it. Looks like a 3-4-3 kind of setup, but Chouanier might be one of those kind of creative wide players that catches us a little bit by surprise.
I like it.
Those are my picks. We'll compare notes next week. Next week, we are in the first match week of the regular season. We're into leg 2 of CONCACAF Champions League. Man, this thing's ramping up fast, Dylan.
So much for the off season.
It's gone. Forget
What
it.
off season, sir?
Exactly.
Forget it. I got notebooks and Google Docs and everything flying around like crazy right now. It's nuts. I'm sure it's the same for you. Thanks for taking some time out for us. We appreciate it.
All right, boys. Enjoy the ConcaCaffing.
Always.
Yep. I'll be next week. Make sure you're following Dylan_Butler on your social media platforms. John, tell everybody about our good friends over at Eliminize.
I could do that. Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH for odor-free, clean, fresh air. There's only one place you need to go and or contact, and it is our friends at Eliminize. They deodorized enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers feel that Eliminize is a big advantage. It eliminizes all bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. It makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue. Different than those masking agents that we have under the kitchen sink that just mask the odors and do not attack the problem. Very different than those. Eliminize is a proven scientific formula that destroys odors down to the molecule. Pricing very, very easy, either by cubic foot or parts per million, whichever is more affordable for you. And they offer results in 24 hours or less. If you have any kind of questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go. It's their website, ELIMINIZE.com, eliminize.com/Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are contacting from. And if you're watching on Twitch, I've got a QR code over my left shoulder that can get you to reach out to Eliminize just as quickly. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's Eliminize Service, eliminize.com/Atlanta. Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Do you know how to work the QR codes now? Have you learned that skill?
I would have to download the QR code app so I could actually. Well, I did it once just to do a QR code, but I just usually will go to the web. And for those watching on Twitch, what I did in the past is I would open up the camera function on my phone, thinking that this was all I needed to do. And then I would take a picture of the QR code and think that that would be what I needed to do the work. But apparently that is not the case. You have to actually download a QR code application, screen cap it, and then it triggers and it goes off to wherever the QR code actually is in the site that it is attached to. So no, it would have been a step that I had no earthly idea I needed to take until I was told to do it.
Okay, let me figure this out again. And Ronald, no, Americans, we don't know anything about football. We're just wasting our time here. Thanks, though. We'll do our best. We'll try. John doesn't know anything about QR codes because I don't think John's ever opened a QR code based off that.
I did once at a menu at a restaurant, but it was after I was told I had to do something other than just take a picture because
then you don't have the app anymore. I don't anyway. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, figure it out. Yeah, Ricky, his camera didn't really work for that when he tried it. So
no, anyway. It didn't. No,
we'll figure this out.
I was told that did not actually.
Well, some phones it does, which is complicating the whole process for you, and I don't want to do that.
No.
Just download an app and you'll figure it out eventually. All right, since we're getting yelled at because us Americans don't know anything about the game, let's talk about the UEFA Champions League and make everybody upset. Manchester City, no record signing Jack Grealish in the team today. Shin injury, same he had last year at Aston Villa. Pep Guardiola said it's not serious. Not available. Cole Palmer not available. Gabriel Jesus not available. We haven't seen Jesus since the injury on international duty last month with Brazil. Palmer's got a foot injury. Manchester City should be okay against Sporting. What are the numbers on that one?
Courtesy of our friends in the composite odds portal, Manchester City is a minus 256, and this is a composite of about a dozen different juice box purveyors, averaging out to a minus 256. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 407, and Sporting is a plus 769 in the composite.
Feels about right. City got a good draw here. Really, really, really strong team. It feels like City's year in Champions League. That can shift really fast with this stuff. I watched a great interview yesterday with Pep. It was from 2019. It was after they had the back-to-back years where they did 196 points or 198 points in the Premier League over 2 years, which is insane. And he was asking, he's always asked about Champions League and does it define his legacy? And he's like, no, it doesn't. It's, 6 games in a group stage and then it's a knockout tournament. No, it doesn't. You have to have things go your way in that tournament. You have to stay true to the way that they play. They're not going to go into cup football there and get all negative and defensive and not want the ball. They're not going to play scared. They're going to be themselves. And this year feels like one of the best themselves that Manchester City has had. So they should be fine even if they're missing more people than that against Sporting. It's going to be a little bit later in the tournament where how do they handle those moments? Is it in their head in these moments? Because that's the one trophy that City doesn't have is that Champions League. But no, I think the conversations about trying to discredit Pep Guardiola because he hasn't won a Champions League there and he didn't win one at Bayern. The league titles, the way that they play, the dominance in 3 different major leagues. He's the GOAT. He's the best there is right now. He's probably the best there is ever. And when he gets that kind of trophy, then I'm really curious to see what then the argument is for the naysayers. What do they point to at that stage when he wins a Champions League at City? Because I think he will. I don't know.
Oh, you finally won one. It's about time.
No, to continue to discredit him, John. Of course they'll say that because haters always have something to say. That's what they do. But what will they then try to say? His team's pass too much. They dribble too much. It's scary. Get a dog, get a rocking chair, sit on the porch. You'll be okay. All right, let's move on. Neymar might play for PSG. First time since November. He's training. That ankle injury was nasty back in November.
It was.
He is possible today when, PSG plays this little team from Spain called Real Madrid. They've got some issues as well. Karim Benzema. He did make the trip. He is available. Can he start? Can he play the full 90? He's so critical to them. And AS pointed it out this morning. 100% legit. 24 goals in 28 appearances this season. Vinicius, so much better when Benzema is in the team. 7 games Benzema has missed. Vinicius has 1 goal. He has 15 in total. Do the math. Last 3 games without Benzema, 1 goal from 48 shots. Now against Villarreal, Gareth Bale. Yeah, remember him? He's back. He started up top. Hit the bar. Showed some flashes. Ancelotti was happy with him. He had his chance. He delivered. He was dangerous. Could have scored. He had a good game. He showed he's committed. Benzema's the key for them, and they might have to manage this first leg to get full Benzema ready. What are the numbers on this one? I'm curious.
PSG is a minus 102. So slightly on the minus side in the composite. Your 90-minute draw and Real Madrid are basically the same at a plus 281 or 282.
This one is in Paris, just in case you didn't know. I really like Real Madrid to find a way to get a draw here. I think it is a little bit of hold on and get Benzema more fit and win the second leg. PSG is just, they're doing it in France, which is not that difficult to do. We know that. They are 13 points clear at the top of the table. 1 loss on the season, 52 goals in 24 games, 19 conceded. They're not really tested all that much. Champions League, they're here. They just haven't looked, I think, what people expected, but maybe those expectations were astronomical. Neymar's injury obviously has kind of derailed the attack a little bit. Messi hasn't played consistently this season. Can he flip the switch and be Leo in these kinds of moments? That's what they're banking on. That's what they paid for. Can he deliver? I don't know. Does he have the same feeling in these kinds of games as he did representing Barcelona? Representing Barcelona in those games, you had to drag him off the field. Does he have that same feeling about that PSG shirt? I just wonder when it gets tough. I think he'll have the same feeling about the opponents because Messi has a great track record against Real Madrid. Can he do that in this? They're going to need him. They're going to need Neymar, and I just don't know what he's going to be able to give you, having not played since November. I don't know where he stands in all of this. PSG has to make the most out of the first leg. If it's level or they're trailing going to Madrid, I don't think they advance, and I think Pochettino might be out at that point. Which, again, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate because of what they're doing in the league, but you're talking about a very different situation in Paris than in most major clubs because of their league situation, and they've put everything on Champions League, which is a crapshoot. I think Madrid gets through the series. I think they do, and I think they get through today with a draw. That would be my pick.
And something really cool to keep an eye on is that today's match between PSG and Real Madrid, same with Inter Milan and Liverpool tomorrow. It's on big CBS. It's not on Paramount Plus. It's on big CBS.
You made it a big deal. I made it a big deal for you. Why are you scared?
Oh, I thought that you were breaking in with something else.
No, you were. It's on CBS. You were making a big deal, so I was playing that up for you.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, traditionally, we see it either on, we see it on TUDN, we see it on Univision, Paramount Plus, CBS Sports Network. Today and tomorrow, you get to see the action in midweek on big CBS with PSG, Real Madrid, and Inter Milan and Liverpool. I just think it's very, very cool. We know how far in CBS as an entity is and how Paramount is as an entity when it comes to their sport. Showing it on big CBS, and on the West Coast, you're preempting soap operas. So it's big stuff, I think, from CBS today and tomorrow.
What soap operas are you preempting, John?
I think it's Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful on the West Coast, sir.
Those are still on.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And we still have Nikki and Victor and Sharon and Nick.
Oh, geez, characters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I used to watch soap operas with great regularity, it would start with Young and the Restless. Then I'd switch to Days of Our Lives at 1:00 Eastern, go back and forth from 1:30 to 2 with Bold and the Beautiful, and then it was traditionally like Another World in Santa Barbara, and then General Hospital was also at 3:00. So yeah, that was the day back in college, going back and forth with the remote, making sure the batteries worked.
Oh my days! Ha ha ha!
Nothing, Big Shaq. I got nothing. Kevin has a question. Why is Liga 1 so far behind the Premier League, La Liga, and Serie A? It's a good one. I mean, Kevin points out France is the number 3 economy and population, excluding Russia and Europe. That's true. The league is not as strong. I don't think you have as many strong clubs. The Premier League's separate because of how much they make. We'll talk about their revenues here in just a second. Historically, just hasn't been as competitive. You've had eras. You had the Marseille era where they were kind of running things and they were breaking the rules, and Tapia got in some trouble there, but that's a whole different conversation. You look at the top of the table right now. I mean, it's PSG, it's Marseille second, it's Nice, it's Strasbourg, it's Rennes. That's your top 5. Your 3, 4, and 5 clubs are not very big. They're not big clubs. Lille won the title last year and then, was in bad financial troubles and couldn't keep everything together. You get mid-table and further down, you're talking some smaller clubs here. I wonder, and they've talked about it. I think they're doing it in the second division going forward, and I think they will eventually in the first division. Maybe they need 18 teams in the league rather than 20. Make it a little more competitive because it's not competitive enough. And that's probably the biggest thing when you get these teams into Champions League, and PSG suffers from this. They don't get tested the same way week after week. They just don't. And everything is about Champions League. And then you're putting, unnatural pressure on those games, and you're kind of walking through league games. It's just the revenues are not the same. I wonder if they'll pick up with Messi in the league, but how long is he going to be there? And Mbappe is probably going to leave the league. Now, Pogba might come into the league. That's been rumored. Neymar's in the league, but how long is he going to stay? You don't make as much money from TV internationally as the others do. That doesn't get spread around. PSG can outspend everybody by such a wide margin. It's not even funny. So you don't have that competition. I think all of those factors come into it. I mentioned the international broadcast revenue. And for the Premier League, it has actually passed the domestic now. 7.2 billion in foreign TV rights from 2022 to 25. Domestic rights, 6.9 billion. I think that's the first time that has happened in England. The U.S. rights bump with Comcast, NBC, all of that. 6-year deal reportedly worth over 2.7 billion. The previous 6-year deal was 1.1. That's a massive jump. That's what bumps it over the domestic. They renewed their rights domestically with Amazon, BT, and Sky. They didn't do an auction. They were still recovering from the pandemic, so they kept their partners in place and rolled them over. DAZN wanted to get in on it. They weren't. Now they might actually buy BT, I think, is being rumored. The season champions for 22-23, so next year's season champions, will see their bonus from these rights go up to $238 million. That's what they get from broadcast rights domestically and internationally. That's more than most of the teams in France spend, period. Like that's their revenue. That's not even what they're spending. That's their revenue from where they finish in the season. Goes up to 238 from 207. Bottom team in the Premier League will get 143.4 million. That's more than a lot of French teams spend in general. A whole lot more than a lot of them make. That's what the bottom team in the Premier League gets. That goes up from 131.2 million. So that's a big reason why. I mean, frankly, it's about money. And there's not enough clubs in France that have money. And when one has the money and the others can't really compete, then you don't really have a compelling tournament. You don't have a compelling league. And you get to the situation that, look, they're talking about in Germany. I don't know if it happens, although it sounds like Bayern is one of the clubs that's for it in terms of having playoffs. You know, if you can't have parity with your spend, you can't have parity in terms of capping, spending, those kinds of things. That's going to be really hard because it is a very foreign concept in Europe. Okay, do you add playoffs to add spice to the league competition? Because there's not a lot of spice in a lot of the leagues. You know, you're kind of lucky this year in Italy that you have a very spicy Serie A campaign. In England, generally you have spice, although this year you don't really, although there's maybe some little lingering spice on the table over there, but I don't think it's going to happen. You do have the competition for other Champions League spots. There's things to play for. I get it. But in terms of winning the thing, this is something that European leagues across the board, but France in particular, has to try to figure out. They have to try to figure this thing out because over time, it does erode the long-term interest. Is there a way to do it? Well, there's that Super League idea, but I don't know where that goes outside of UEFA trying to do it themselves through the Champions League, which is where I think it will end up. I don't know if it'll go past that. I think FIFA would probably have to be driving it and figure that out, but I just don't know what the long term is for some of these leagues because we've talked about the cap in La Liga a lot when it comes to Barcelona. It's about sustainability. It's not about competitiveness. So it's a very different conversation. I would love to know where the general attendances are for your bottom of the Premier League teams, bottom of the first division teams across these major leagues, where the second division attendances are year to year, the third division, and so on, because they're almost in a separate world. You know, I know a lot of the conversation about the Super League is about protecting the smaller clubs, but if the smaller clubs are already in another world entirely, and we're not talking soap operas again, if they're in this just completely different situation than these big boys, all right, can you find a way to get the best out of both? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but UEFA saw what happened. UEFA obviously is not sticking their head in the sand about it because there are issues with some of these leagues. You're going to see an increased Champions League already coming. Does it go past that? I don't know what it looks like, but you get into France, you get into Germany to a lesser extent because the clubs are, I think, better run across the board. Italy has had this issue. Spain has this issue with a very small subset of heavyweights. how do they continue to keep the league competitive? Because when you see like what in Spain has happened with Messi leaving and stars leaving, do those broadcast rights fees, which drive a lot of this, do they dwindle a little bit? It's kind of good that La Liga got their deal from ESPN here domestically while Messi was still on the books at Barcelona, because I don't think they would have got it next year. And it's going to affect these leagues in general. We'll see. Look, there's so much down the line with all that. I do think in 10 years it's going to look very different than it does now. And traditionalists are going to be up in arms about it. But I think you do have to think outside the box a little bit in some of these situations and find a way to make more compelling structures, not just one. Champions League is, because essentially it's a knockout tournament once you get past the group stage. Incredibly compelling. They might even make it more compelling by going to a Final Four where it's a single game in the semifinals and the final. Okay, I get it. People are going to tune in. Are people tuning into Liga on a regular basis right now? Not really. Not really. And that's a shame. Is there anything they can do? I don't know. It's not going to be easy. And as Byrne points out, the culture is a little bit different in France too. That does factor in. They develop great players because of the structures that they have. But the game culturally is looked at a little bit differently than it is in England, for sure. In Spain and Italy and Germany, it's just different. That's going to factor into this too. There's a lot of things that have to be considered in these discussions. It's not as simple as add playoffs and everything's great. Maybe not. Maybe not, because it still might be the same teams competing for the playoffs. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But Champions League in Europe is back. Who are you banking to win this thing, John?
Manchester City. I know that's a very chalkish way to look at things, but
yeah, it is.
Right now, odds to win Champions League, courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Manchester City is top of the ladder at a plus 275. Odds to reach the final, they're at a plus 140. And
what's the rest of the odds to win it?
Let's see. Bayern Munich is next at a plus 350. Liverpool's at a plus 450.
I can see that.
Chelsea at a plus 650.
Can absolutely see that.
PSG at a plus 900.
Where's Real Madrid?
Two below at a plus 1,600. So they are 7th at plus 1,600, Real Madrid. Ajax is listed as 6th by BetMGM at plus 1,250.
Ajax has been incredible, but when you talk about levels of leagues, you're talking about a very different level of a league there. They've been incredible this season, but they're not getting tested in the same way. They have been really good in UEFA as well. Can that continue? That's an interesting bet. I don't see them winning it, but can they make a run? Benfica, they can get past. They can get past them. That's absolutely winnable. It's a good draw for them. The matchups, just in case you're getting back into the UEFA Champions League. PSG Madrid today at 3:00. Also Sporting and Manchester City today, 3:00. Tomorrow, Inter and Liverpool at 3:00 alongside Red Bull Salzburg and Bayern. Bayern should be able to regroup a little bit there. Then 22nd, Chelsea hosts Lille. Chelsea should be fine. Villarreal hosting Juventus. And the 23rd, Atleti hosting Manchester United. Benfica hosting Ajax. The second legs of the matchups right now today will be on March 9th. So a pretty good bit of time for a Madrid, for a PSG to get Benzema, to get Neymar back healthy for that second leg. That's why I think Madrid is smart today. I think Ancelotti is pretty smart in trying to get out of there with a draw.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that Benzema to me is key, and I think that Real tries to get out of there with a draw to get it back to the second leg, no question.
Yeah, that Madrid number is the one that maybe grabbed my attention the most. I do think they're a team that can win this thing. They've got to get past PSG. I think they will. Won't be easy. They got to manage today. But if they do, that's a really tasty number. The Chelsea number, I think, is really tasty too, because I still think Tuchel is one of the best coaches in the game, and he can find a way to get through these teams. And he's had really good success against Pep Guardiola in some of those moments. So can that continue? We'll find out. Could get really compelling as we go. It always does in Champions League. You always got something. You'll have somebody pull an upset in this first round, or in the round of 16. Who do you think is the best upset pick, John?
Let's see. It won't be Sporting Lisbon. I wouldn't consider Real Madrid an upset if they beat PSG.
No, I think PSG Real Madrid's a toss-up.
Yeah. Bayern, I think, gets past Salzburg, Liverpool, Milan. Let's go with Villarreal over Juve.
Yeah, that would be an upset, even if it maybe isn't as much of an upset as you might think based off history.
Right.
Inter beating Liverpool, I think, would be an upset.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit less of one, but I think it would be an upset. I think both of those are possible. I don't see Salzburg shocking anybody. Atleti Manchester United is an interesting matchup.
Yes.
As we continue to hear more about Manchester United these days, man, they don't shut up.
No.
Nobody shuts up at Manchester United. You got Gary Neville saying, hey, guys, shut up. We know who's talking. Nobody's shutting up. AS in Spanish reported that Cristiano Ronaldo and several other Manchester United players do not believe Ralf Rangnick has the ability to manage the club and is out of his depth at Old Trafford. ESPN is reporting that Manchester United have added Christopher Nkunku to their list of summer targets. Rangnick wants them to go get him. He's at Leipzig, French midfielder. Okay, is he now overseeing the transfer policy, but he's out of his depth and he might not be the manager next year, but he's influencing who will come in. But his style of play is very specific, so he's going to be looking at players who do that, but he might not be the manager next year. This is all so stupid. Edinson Cavani, according to Fabrizio Romano, is leaving in the summer when his contract is up, even though Rangnick really, personally went to him to keep him there in January to finish this year out. He's going to go. He's 35. It's probably the right time. Curious to see where he goes. He'd been linked to Boca at different points, although they brought Dario Benedetto back, so maybe not. Could he be the summer replacement for Julian Alvarez at River Plate? That would be fascinating. Cavani will be in South America. I think maybe, who knows? Maybe Barcelona gets crazy for a player who's out of contract. He's 35, but man, he's still bringing it. So could get really interesting with him. Burned the whole thing with Nkunku and all the players that are getting linked because of Rangnick. Now, remember, these are rumors and things going around. If he's not going to be the manager next season and he's looking at very specific kinds of players because of his style of play, we're back to the idea that Manchester United doesn't really have much of a plan. They kind of panicked and went for this, and they haven't fully committed to it. But then they're going to commit to it in the transfer market, but not on the touchline. If Pochettino's the guy, he doesn't play the same way that Rangnick wants. He wants the ball. So, I don't get it. I don't know. Other rumors: Newcastle going to go to Sevilla with a fresh offer for Diego Carlos. Couldn't get him in January. We'll see if they do in the summer. Borussia Dortmund and Salzburg still negotiating over a deal for Karim Adeyemi. Reportedly, they got the personal terms down with Dortmund, but the player valuation is still apart. Dortmund want to offer 30 million euro plus bonuses. Salzburg want 45. Probably 40 will be enough, according to the reports. We'll see if that gets done. An interesting one from The Athletic. Arsenal turned down the chance to sign Mauro Icardi from PSG during the January window. Now, we know Arsenal were trying to get Dusan Vlahovic. Couldn't get that done. He wanted to stay in Italy. They turned down the deal on Icardi. Probably a good idea, although they needed a forward in the January window. So I get turning down Icardi coming with that circus coming to town, but they did need somebody. So we'll see if that ends up being the right deal. I don't think Cavani goes to Miami, Sam. I don't see that at all. I think Cavani will be elsewhere. There's no room for him in Miami with Gonzalo Higuain there already. I don't get it. I think he'll probably go to South America where he's been linked before. Although there were some rumors. There was Juve, it came up. There was Barcelona. We'll see. He's probably got another year in him in Europe. But we'll see if the appeal to come closer to home is it. I don't see it in Miami. I think Miami is putting all their eggs in the Lionel Messi basket for down the road. And I think that is far more likely than anything else, but not in the summer. Messi's going to stay in Europe for at least another half of a season to be ready to go into that World Cup. After that, we'll see. Ricky Ricardo talking about the Luca Martinez news, rumors, what have you. It's all over the place. Just wait and see. I mean, it sounds like now he's closer to Talleres than coming to Atlanta. That could change tomorrow, and then it could change back the other day. And who knows when the Argentine window closes, because it was supposed to have closed already, but teams are getting reprieves from it because I guess just whatever, you ask for it and you get it. Who knows? Who knows? But that deal, I don't know. It has flipped all around, but that's flipped in the media. So I think sometimes when we have deals like that flip in the media, we think it's actually flipping in the boardrooms and in the planning, where it might not be. We don't know where that part stands. I don't. I'm not going to tell you I do. Just because the rumors are changing and the stories are changing doesn't mean the reality is changing. That's one thing to keep in mind with this stuff. It is silly season, absolute silly season. It's always silly season. It's a year-round thing these days.
So once again, if Jarrett were up here and you would look at his icon.
No, that has nothing to do with it, John, in this case, because this is coming from Cesar Luis Merlo. No, it's not about the sources.
Well, then if it's coming from Cesar Luis Merlo, then pay attention to what the man has to say.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not about the generic check your sources. These are coming from the top sources. The story is changing because of what they're getting. You don't know. It happens.
No, I mean, it could be absolute subterfuge from clubs or agents.
It could be a misunderstanding. It could be subterfuge. It could be flipping a coin to tell somebody a story. It could be a million things. We're not going to play that game because you guys know how this stuff works by now. Same thing with Eric Lopez. I mean, he's training at Bonfield. Don't know what the situation is to get that thing finalized either. But it has not been announced by Atlanta United yet, and he was not part of Bonfield's squad this weekend. I don't think he's been registered by Bonfield for the Argentine Copa de la Liga. And Luca Martinez has not been registered for Talleres in that competition yet. He's still at Rosario Central. Just have to wait and see. This stuff sometimes takes time. It basically is year-round silly season, Uncle No Pockets at this point. Some people have said they want to get rid of the transfer windows and players can just move. That would be absolute insanity on a regular basis. It's crazy enough as it is. So please, we're barely hanging on at this point, World Soccer. We're barely hanging on. Please don't make it worse. A couple of other bits of news before we grab some questions from you guys. Adrian Gill, a name you might want to keep in mind. He is at Barcelona's academy at La Masia. Joined them in July of last year. 16 years old. He is impressed. The coach is close to signing his first pro contract. He's been wearing the number 10 at La Masia. They don't toss that around easily. He's from Colorado, turned 16 last month. He's been part of the U17 group since last year. Called up last year for a training camp under Gonzalo Segares, the new U17 manager, in preparation for the 2023 U17 World Cup. It's going to be played in Peru. But you might have a U.S. Colorado-born player playing for Barcelona. He's been wearing the number 10 in La Masia. That's a pretty big deal. U.S. women's national team, we know what the pathway is for them to qualify for 2023 World Cup and the Olympics in 24. CONCACAF Women's Championship will be the qualification tournament for both. It'll take place July 4th through the 18th in Monterrey. Top 4 finishers in the tournament qualify for the World Cup. So you get to the semis, you're going to the World Cup in 23. The winner automatically qualifies for the Olympics in Paris in 24. The second and third place teams will have a playoff in September of 23 to determine the second and final spot in the Olympics. First time in almost a decade that the women's national team has to qualify for a World Cup outside of the U.S. It's good. I'm glad to see it moving around. Canada should host one too. Get one in Central America as well. Get them bouncing around. You got to have the facilities. I mean, there's things that have to happen to be able to do that. But yes, the U.S. should not host all of those by default. I'm glad to see it moving. USL update. Juan Pablo Torres, last with New York City, formerly of Georgia United. the academy that turned into Atlanta United's academy. Tony Annan and many others partnered to make that happen. Torres was part of that as a teenager, went to Europe, didn't work out, came back and signed with NYC, only played in 6 games over a few years. He signed with RGV in the USL Championship with Wilmer Cabrera down in Texas. It's a good signing. Hopefully he gets to play. Just never got the opportunity in New York. Some other MLS updates. Carolina Challenge Cup continues tonight. Columbus and Charlotte at 5 o'clock. Charleston and Miami at 8 o'clock. Charleston beat Charlotte in game 1-0. Miami and Columbus drew 1-1. St. Louis should be announcing at some point, I don't think they have yet, they should be announcing their stadium naming rights deal for 2023. The construction on the stadium is scheduled to be completed this summer. Purina is going to be the kit sponsor. Together Credit Union is the official banking sponsor. This is going to be the stadium naming rights deal. It should be announced sometime this morning. I have not seen it pop up as of yet. Orlando updates. Ercin Kara. He's returned to training. He had an ankle injury suffered about 2 weeks ago. He's hoping to be part of the season opener the next weekend. See if he gets there. Antonio Carlos, center back, having visa issues. They thought he'd be there 2 weeks ago. Issues have persisted. There isn't an answer to it. That's a problem. Pedro Galese, they're working on a new contract for him, and he'll be part of the team's plans going forward. We mentioned the Alvaro to Santos deal with Toronto. Seattle signed Jackson Reagan, a 6'6" center back who had previously played with Tacoma Defiance, 16 starts, scored a goal. Part of Seattle's academy in 2016-17. He was a standout at the University of Michigan. He joined after last season. So last August, he joined Tacoma Defiance. He played 4 years at Michigan, went through the draft. Chicago drafted him number 33. This is where it gets a little complicated. So he was drafted by Chicago, second round. Seattle, even though he was one of their players, they didn't sign to a homegrown deal. And then they decided they wanted him. They sent a third-round pick for his rights to sign him, even though he was a second-round pick by Chicago. Okay. Signed him to a one-year deal, two options, 23 and 24 is where it stands for him. Altidore, we covered. The way that happened, you tell me, because it was complicated and convoluted a little bit. But he gets to go where he wanted to go. It sounds like he was bought out in a traditional manner, not just an MLS buyout, although it was described as an MLS buyout, which would take him off the roster, which I would have thought would have meant he had to go through waivers, but I guess not, because there was a financial consideration paid to him to pay off his deal. I don't know. Sometimes the stuff gets a little too complicated, and hopefully they can simplify it down the road. All right, let's get into some questions. I'm going to scroll back just a little bit from when I said it. And any update on Lopez we talked about? Absolute mayhem, Tom Cato. True. The soccer portal, Joe Boss. No, we don't want that at all. I will lose my mind. Burns says, what will LAFC do if/when Carlos Vela leaves in the summer? He was on Football Americas yesterday. I have not seen it. Burns said he doesn't seem happy with the club about the situation. We had talked about this, back when the roster decisions were announced by LAFC. They have a podcast that, I think it's fair to say it's semi-official. Max Bretos, who is their play-by-play announcer, and Vince De La Rosa, who has worked for the team. They do a show. Vince said specifically that even though they picked up the option, it didn't mean that Vela would be back this year. He is back. He's training. But yeah, it seems like there's an issue there and nobody's really talking about it. I don't know what the resolution is. I don't get it. I don't know what the issue is. I think he wants a new deal. He wants either more money or more years, I'm assuming. And I don't know. I don't know where it stands. If they lose him, yeah, it's a completely different situation for them. They do have a good roster. I do like the moves they've made in general with coming into 23. I'm pretty happy with where they are. You get Maxime Crépeau, really good addition. In the back, you get Ryan Hollingshead, really good addition. Although you had Diego Palacios, Hollingshead is a potential best 11 left back for me. Escobar on the right side with Kim Moon-Wan. Escobar could play in the middle as well. Eddie Segura back. Mamadou Fall has shown his quality. Jesus Murillo is there. Escobar can play centrally. Figure out the personnel. We'll see. If you lose Vela, let's take him out of the equation for a minute. You have Christian Arango up top. You have Brian Rodriguez on a flank. How long, we don't know. You have Ismail Tajori-Shradi as a winger as well. Central midfield, you got Kellen Acosta, you got Ilie, you got Janela, you got Cifuentes, you got Latif Blessing. Ton of options there. That's really good taking Vela out of the equation. Is Vela going to play on the wing as we've seen where he cuts inside? Is he going to play as a 10 and keep one of those central midfielders on the bench? I think he plays in the wing. I think he's probably on the side opposite of Brian Rodriguez. Rodriguez often on the left, cutting into his right foot. Vela often on the right, cutting into his left. Okay. And now Cherundolo is the new manager there. What does he do? Does he want inverted wingers? Does he want to change that up? Does he want them to play as wingers? Well, Vela's not really a traditional winger. He's not going to be taking it to the end line and putting in crosses. So what does that look like? We'll have to wait and see a little bit. If you lose Vela from that group, and it is Tajori-Shradi as a starter on a flank with some combination in the midfield, and I don't know what it is yet. I would assume right now, my guess is Acosta, Ilie, and Cifuentes. That would be my assumption. Janela and Blessing would like to have a word with me about that, but that's the trio that I would go with. You lose Vela, you bring in Tajori-Shradi. That is a big drop-off, but I don't know what they want to do about Vela. Do they want to give him more years? That's risky. He's been injured a lot these past 2 years. But if you're keeping him around and he's not happy, that's also detrimental. And do you have a lingering issue all year? And you've got a new manager having to deal with that in Steve Cherundolo. That's one of the underrated parts of this. Cherundolo's got to manage a player in Vela who, doesn't seem all that thrilled about his current situation. And he's your most important player. How does Cherundolo, who has been through this stuff as a player, but not as the main guy, how does he handle that? And is it going to be on him to handle it, or is he going to get help from the front office and John Thorrington and what they do about Vela? I don't know. Because if there was an issue, it seems like it would have needed to be resolved by now. If he didn't want to be there and they didn't want to sign him to a new deal, they should have found a home for him in Mexico. Or Europe, which had been talked about as well, potentially going back to La Liga. It's not. And if you've got grumpy Carlos Vela for the first half of the season, and then I would assume that there's not another option for him. And then you could get to the summer where he signs a pre-contract with another team. And if he's already grumpy Carlos Vela, do you just get a little bit of cash and let him go early and then have to deal with it in the summer window? You might have to deal with Brian Rodriguez moving in the summer window too. It feels like a house of cards a little bit. It feels like it's playing Jenga and you're in a really tough spot. I don't know how they handle this, John, because if you don't handle it correctly, then you're going into another year where you're at risk of not making the playoffs because of this stuff. And that's not acceptable for LAFC.
Vela, when he came into the league from Real Sociedad, 28 matches played in 2018, 14 goals. Then the big year in 2019, played and starred in 31, 34 goals, 15 assists. 2020, only 7 matches played, only started in 4. Last season, only played in 20, started in 15. And for me, the question starts with a 32-year-old Carlos Vela, who we know is going to want years and is going to want a contract because he, if you want to stay in LAFC, I want to stay here. I want years and I want dollars. But the question for the front office and John Thorrington is, do we invest in a player who has only played 27 matches in the last 2 years because of his injuries? And that, for me, is the biggest thing in dealing with the notion of, okay, if we don't and he's not happy, then what do we do? Do we act now? If we don't act now, then it could get worse. And I don't envy the front office in having to deal with this. And I don't envy Steve Cherundolo for one of his first challenges as new head coach at LAFC, because if you don't want to invest in Carlos Vela longer term, then you've got to figure out what to do with him, so where you're not penalized and not getting anything in return. So this is something that is going to be a massive front office thought leading into this year and trying to come up with some kind of a resolution, knowing that if you're going to cut bait on Carlos Vela, you've got to act now to try to figure something out so you don't get a big zero coming back and he can just leave. I mean, this is a...
Sorry, we got news. Sporting Kansas City has acquired Montenegrin international striker Nikola Vujovic. We'll get the proper pronunciation once they announce it. He is currently, it's a season-long loan from FK Vazdovac in Serbia. 25 years old, among the top scorers in the Serbian Superliga, member of Montenegro's national team. Of course, he'll take up an international slot. Joining on the heels of a career season from the press release that Kansas City's put out, 10 goals, 1 assist so far in Serbia's top division, 4th on the league's goal-scoring charts, double digits with starts in 21 of 22 league appearances. Vazdovac is in the 6th place in the 16-team Superliga. 16 goals, 3 assists for Vazdovac over the last 2 seasons. He was in Montenegro prior to that. Started his professional career in Serbia. Joined Villarreal in early 2015. Featured regularly for their C team from 15 to 18. Villarreal B from 18 to 19. 12 goals and 64 appearances across both of those teams. And he scored, I think, a big goal for Villarreal B against Liverpool's reserves in 2018. Okay, that's a stretch of something to note. This is where you're at. Again, we've talked about it with Sporting Kansas City. They can't add another designated player because of the rules. Alan Pulido's out for the year. You don't have a ton of room to work with. This is who you're getting. This was not on anybody's board. A Montenegro international, not the first Montenegro international in MLS, by the way. Who was it? DC had one last decade. I can't remember. I'll have to look that one up. But you're getting a player who's got double-digit goals in Serbia. That's who they're going to get. Now, are they going to get him for opening day when they will be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium? It's the 15th and 27th. It's not far away. Can they pull that off? We'll see. Let's see what the visa process looks like out of Serbia and or Montenegro in this process. But that's who they have added. That's the forward that they had teased last week. We just have to see. You have to scramble if you're Kansas City in this situation. I hate it for them. I don't know what else they could have done. They have had success going to Europe and bringing guys in the past. Can they do it again? Well, we'll find out. So a little bit of an unknown mystery addition here for Kansas City. Burned with a question about Josh Bauer, if he had started any more preseason games for Nashville. Not Jack Bauer, although that was pretty funny. Tom Cato with does he wear number 24? I have not seen the other lineups for Nashville. I know he started one over Jack Mayer. We'll see if he continues to get opportunities to maybe bump Mayer out, who was their first round pick last year. Be a little bit of a surprise. I thought Mayer was good last year for Nashville. But we've talked about Bauer. I like Bauer as a player. I think it was a little bit of a numbers game and an experience game with him, and that's why Alex DeJohn stayed. And I think Bauer was the one who was the odd man out. Bryce Washington, being a homegrown, probably had a little bit of priority as well out of that group. And we're not talking about Campbell or Robinson or Franco in that decision. But it could end up being a really big benefit for Nashville to pick him up. I would have thought Mayer would start over him. I thought Bauer would kind of be the number 4 guy in the mix in Nashville, but maybe he's shown a little bit early on, or maybe Gary Smith wanted to test him to see where he is with that other group. I have to wait and see till we get a little bit closer to the regular season, because these lineups, can be a little influx in preseason. We talked about Toronto's, and managers do have to try some things in these games as well. So we'll see. What do you think about Bauer in Nashville and his chances?
I legitimately thought that if he was going to stick, it was going to be as one of the bench guys who would come in, possibly get work late in matches, that kind of stuff. But if he's showing himself to be someone who can log regular minutes, consistent minutes, and be one of those go-to guys for Gary Smith, more power to him. I mean, I like what we saw with him with Atlanta United too, but sometimes, one reason or another, things don't wash one way or the other. So no, I'm looking forward to seeing this, because we saw what he could do when it came to closing speed and closing things down at the back when he was challenged. And there were a lot of things to his game that I enjoyed watching, and I enjoyed watching them grow. Can he do that in Nashville? It looks like that's the early case. And it looks like the St. Louis Founding Partner Stadium naming rights sponsor is supposed to happen at the top of the hour.
Okay. Well, we might get that here in about 3 minutes. We're not staying super long today. Try to finish up some more questions here. Unk with the question about Lopez Dom spots potentially coming open. What should Atlanta be looking for to fill out the current roster? He says, assuming backup striker isn't an issue, I think that's definitely one of the spots you're looking to fill. And if you lose Dom, I think you're potentially looking at a winger. And I think maybe, depending on the injury severity for Machop Chol, maybe you're looking even harder at another wing option. Because I think Chol would have been somebody they would have liked to have seen grow into that as a reserve, as a spot starter. But if he's hurt, and he got hurt in the opportunity against Chivas on Sunday, and it didn't look great for him either. Franco Ibarra looked like more of a knock, and he walked off okay. Chol looked like he was in some pain. Now, it might be temporary. It might not be a long-term thing, but you're losing a winger. Winger's the obvious answer to add another piece to the depth there, even though you've got outside backs who can play on the wing. If you lose Chol on top of Dom, if Chol's even out for any kind of time, you might be looking at another winger who you can get and put in your team immediately, put in your bench immediately. Maybe it's somebody from around the league. Maybe it's somebody from USL Championship. But yeah, you might need to get another winger. I think the two pieces you're looking for are backup forward, and Dom Dwyer has not signed as of yet. He was on trial in Guadalajara. I don't know what the plans are for that continuing, or if he's going to get signed. I don't know if he's going to be in the mix for Sunday. But if he is, okay, that's one of those answers. And I think wing is the other. So we'll see. Four Card says, so I guess Charlotte is waiting for us to buy Dom out before they sign him. Maybe. They probably should. We'll see. I just don't think they want to do any business with Atlanta if they don't have to. I don't think they want to give Atlanta anything. But they absolutely could use Jurgen Damm. They absolutely could use Jurgen Damm. And this is not just trying to pawn somebody off. This is, look, Jurgen Damm's a guy who has said he wants to get back into the Mexican national team. He's got to play. And Charlotte has one winger on their roster right now. They desperately need wingers that can walk in the door tomorrow. It makes too much sense. But they don't want to have to give any allocation money to Atlanta. They don't want to help Atlanta.
No.
So it is a little bit of a game of chicken. Really curious to see where that thing goes. Yeah, Burned, I did see the things about Vela and El Tree as well. He said that door was closed on rejoining the national team, which that's another whole weird saga. Between that saga and the Chicharito saga with the national team, and oh man, it's all kinds of complicated. I don't know. Storm Chasers Kevin lets us know that the NPSL should release the Southeastern Conference schedule soon. Excellent. We will try to do some homework. We will be doing shows weekly with the Georgia Revolution and the Georgia Storm to get you ready for those games. And, you know, we got a chance to see both of them against Atlanta United. I don't think those are going to be the final rosters by any stretch with those teams. Getting a chance to see games up close and personal, especially if you got kids in the family, highly recommended going to McDonough, going to Carrollton and seeing these games. We'll highlight that schedule, and we will be starting with the Rev show, or at least a first edition of the Rev show, probably the week before the Open Cup first round. We'll get into what their roster is going to look like for that and kind of preview that a little bit. It's a long trip for them. over to Mississippi to play Southern States FC. The Storm, I think, are planning to play some preseason games in April, and we'll probably try to get the Storm show underway around that time. So those will be weekly. Those will go up on YouTube as well as podcasts. So be on the lookout. Ricky asked about the status of MLS Next Pro. I think it's kind of the same thing like we talked about with the transfer stuff. I mean, I know things are happening behind the scenes. You're getting announcements. I don't think it's as, I guess, uncertain as you might think. I just don't think a lot has been announced. I don't think teams are like scrambling, trying to sign guys and sign coaches and figure these things out. I do wonder why we haven't seen the schedule yet. And I'm wondering about maybe some of the requirements and teams hitting that for their venues and those kinds of things. I really hope that it's taken seriously, because I think it is a huge opportunity for the league to have that in-house. But they've got to find the right level of emphasis, in my opinion. Something that I've found over these past few weeks with looking at Celaya, looking at Tepatitlán, looking at Chivas and Tapatío, their second team, is how much information you can get out of Mexico on the overall depth of the club, all the way down to I can pull up a player's card from Mexico and see when they played and who they played for in Fuerzas Básicas, which is the academies, where they played at U15 or even U13. I saw some coming up with games they play, numbers of games they played and goals they scored and cards and that kind of stuff. That's amazing. I would love to see MLS create that integration with MLS Next Pro, and with MLS Next, the academy side, to where, okay, I'm calling a game between Houston and Chicago, and I can go to their MLS Next Pro roster and see, all right, this guy has been with the club since he was 15. He's played in 50 games in the academy over the years. He's got 5 games at the pro level in MLS Next Pro. Cool, he's an academy player. Got it. I'd love to have that kind of information at my fingertips. The way Mexico has that set up, outstanding. Really, really easy on the league sites. It's really clean. It's really easy. I love that. I hope MLS Next Pro can find that kind of level. But yeah, it's going to be treated a little bit like I think you see with Liga MX, where your Liga MX teams have second teams predominantly. I don't think everybody does, but predominantly they do. Chivas has Tapatío, which plays in the second division in Mexico. MLS teams will have their teams playing in the third division here. Doesn't really matter that much. But it needs to all fit. And I want to be able to tell those stories between the academy kids coming to Next Pro and then eventually going to MLS, and we can point back and say what they did in MLS Next Pro, that kind of stuff. What do you have, John?
Centene Stadium is the title sponsor for the new barn there in West Downtown.
Centene in St. Louis, by the way.
St. Louis, yes.
If you're wondering, that's kind of the important part.
Yes, in St. Louis. So St. Louis City SC's stadium will be known as Centene Stadium. They are a health and wellness provider that is a Fortune 25 company. So Centene Corporation is going to carry the name of St. Louis City SC's new stadium in downtown.
And make sure you capitalize city all the way across, because that is the way it is branded to be, which is kind of weird, but okay. Props to them getting a check from Centene. That's cool. Probably a pretty big check, I would assume.
Yep.
All right, Joe Bost, Jake, and we've heard about Jake's exploits. You can see the Atlanta United logo, if I can point to it over my head right there that I'm pointing at. That was Jake's artwork. Jake is playing his first middle school match today. 10 years old, like 75 pounds. Some of his teammates are 6 feet tall.
Wow.
Middle school soccer is a blast. Enjoy it. Have fun. It's just an especially middle school soccer. It's an opportunity to play with teammates and play against teams that have a wide level of skills. You'll get some good players. You'll get some players who've probably never really played before. You'll get some big guys. You'll get some little guys who can play. It's a fun test, but yeah, enjoy it and try not to tangle with the 6-footers. No. Be careful about that. Don't get caught there. Burned, you're right. We're talking about wingers. If Chol is out for a period of time, Darwin Mateus could be that possibility. Darwin Mateus played for the Twos in their first preseason match. They played Life University over the weekend, and good reports on Senor Mateus. I think he's going to have a big year this year. I'm looking forward to seeing him and Mejia with that group, unless you got to make a signing. I don't know off the top of my head if Jürgen Damm had ever gotten a green card. I don't know if he took up an international slot, but you got one because Mulroney got a green card. So any which way, if you need to sign Mateus, who I don't think has a green card because he's been with the Twos, yeah, not bad. That could work. I like it. And yeah, I don't hate that signing at all, Bern. I would not hate that if that happens. Kevin, yeah, talking about NPSL, the signings are the hardest thing. We'll probably get into predictions with that right at the first week of the season, because a lot of the signings across NPSL are very last minute. And Apotheos is going to be in Kennesaw this year. We're going to try to learn a little bit more about them and have some content on them as well. Appalachian, what are these teams going to look like is the question. I think from the Storm and from the Revs, we at least have a decent idea. They've got a lot of returning guys and a little more stable maybe in that realm. Apotheos is brand new, so it's a little bit of a crapshoot. And Appalachian, the hype is great. The branding is great. It's a fun team to follow. What kind of talent can they draw? Recruiting is the biggest thing in NPSL going into the summer. It's all about who you know and who you can bring in and who your players are buddies with and what you can pull together in a very short period of time in that summer, very frantic kind of league season. So looking forward to it. Tom, I'm with you. Yeah, a lot of teams already have their second team set, and they kind of know who out of the academy is going to play, talking about next pro. So I think it's a pretty easy announcement dump when that time comes. And for MLS teams, you're not going to detract from the big signings you're making at the MLS level right now. So I think it'll be, which is typical. I mean, this is, having reserve teams in a league like this, talked about Mexico, Spain does it. Plenty of leagues around the world do it. And it's treated differently than a USL championship team would treat their signings. That is their big team. That is their top team. That's everything. For a next pro team, signings or guys being promoted or guys looked at playing out of the academy, you're not going to have as much of that information. And it's down to, honestly, people like us to try to get that information out to you and cover it and try to give you our takes on it. And that's what we're going to try to do. Yeah, the schedule is what I'm waiting on too. The structure stuff, I mean, it's out there. I don't know how much more of the league structure there really is to announce. The schedule is what I'm waiting on because I want to see when these games are going to get played. Because I want to watch a lot of them. I want to see these teams and see where, okay, this guy's a first team player but hasn't been playing. He moves over to the next pro team and he's doing really well. Could he move back up? I want to know those storylines. I want to nerd out on this. So I'm looking forward to it. Bernd, I think it will take time. Bernd says he sees MLS Next Pro. Bernd is wearing the Debbie Downer hat today. Sees Next Pro more pessimistically. Fears it'll be a big drop-off from USL. It will be year one because it has to be. It's a big change. I hope that it ramps up year after year. And I think one of the big things that will make it ramp up is the academy development continuing to improve. That's what's going to feed Next Pro. It's not going to be as much of going out and signing guys externally, although there will be some of that. There will be a little bit of that. It's going to be about the academies developing better players. And when that continues to grow, the Next Pro will continue to grow. But yeah, it's going to be the realm of us soccer nerds, us MLS nerds, really digging into it. And, if all the information is as available as I hope it is, and we can talk about it, maybe we have a roundup of MLS Next Pro highlights and stuff on the network. Maybe that's something we do. I'm down to do it. I'm crazy. We'll see what comes up with it.
I mean, one of the more interesting cases for me is going to be Rochester.
Well, that's a whole different realm. Yeah.
And that's why.
I don't know what that looks like. St. Louis is going to be interesting this year because they're fielding an ex-pro team and will guys, be looked at as potential MLS signings for their first year next year. Yeah, I mean, that's different for sure. It will have, I think, ultimately when you get more independent teams and we see where it goes long term, I think it'll have a Liga de Expansión kind of feel, more so than we had with USL Championship. I know we still got a few teams playing USL Championship. Atlanta United 2 is. But that felt much more of teams like a sleepover. Like the second teams coming in, they weren't really part of the league, but they kind of were, but they weren't. Liga de Expansión in Mexico feels more level with the independent teams and the second teams, and it's more equal footing. And some of that's down to the way the league's structured. It's not an independent entity running it like you have with USL. It's the federation running it, so they're going to make everything equal. I think it'll have a little bit more of that feel down the road as we get more independent teams. I'm just curious to see what they do with the independent teams and how that looks like. You know, do we get more Rochester situations, or do we get brand new markets that are kind of trying this out? It's going to be cool. Let's see as we continue. Kevin, absolutely. Wilfred Camden Chupa scored for life against the Twos, and he's a Storm player, and he looked good for the Storm in their match against Atlanta United. He's a player. He's a legit player. He's a pro player. When that happens, I don't know, but he's a pro. And look, maybe it happens with an Atlanta United too. Maybe it happens with a Chattanooga Red Wolves or South Georgia Tormenta or Greenville Triumph. He's that level, and he's still got room to grow. But yeah, I love him as a player. He always stood out to me last summer. Okay, trying to finish up questions here before we go. Burn talking about Burn and Tom going back and forth about loans and player development and all that. It will be, I think what it'll be, guys, to kind of finish that conversation off a little bit, I think it will be really down to what the MLS clubs do with their coaching staffs at MLS Next Pro. You get guys playing good competition in your Lou Cities and your Tampa Bay Rowdies and clubs like that in USL. That helps. But ultimately, what's really going to make the difference in these situations is the coaching. If you have a bad second team coaching staff, but you're playing in USL and you're getting good competition, you're not getting a great development process. If you are in MLS Next Pro, which it'll take a year or two for the level to get where I think they want it to get. But if you have a great coaching staff, and I think Atlanta's lucky with Jack Collison and with the staff that he has, it's going to be all those training sessions and the opportunity to mix in with the first team from time to time. That's where the players are really going to improve. The games become a little bit more of tests, like we've talked about with preseason so far. If you don't have a good second team coaching staff, if you are not taking that seriously as an MLS club, then yeah, you're not going to develop talent. If you are doing that properly and you're building the network to where, hey, this guy needs more than what we can do with MLS Next Pro, but he's not quite ready for MLS yet, maybe you do have to send him on a 6-month loan outside of it. Maybe it is a USL Championship. More than likely, it's probably going to be to another country. That's okay. That's okay. I'd love to see some of these teams look at relationships and look, maybe Atlanta then benefits from these relationships with playing these games with Celaya and with Tepatitlan. If you're not going to be able to send a guy to play in a system that's somewhat like where you're playing to a USL Championship team where it's a little bit closer. Send him to Celaya. Send him to Tepatitlan. Play in that league. If you know that coach has a similar mindset and is going to play your player, maybe that becomes an option for an Atlanta United rather than sending them to a Charleston on loan, for example. We'll see. But for me, it's all about the investment in the coaching. That's the number one thing. The games are a bonus. The coaching is going to be the most important thing. And it's got to be on the same page with the first team so you're producing guys who can walk in. It's going to be really, really important. GH with a little bit of breaking news. That's cool. Coleman Gannon is on trial with the Columbus Crew.
Nice.
I was wondering where he would pop up. Good player, just size was a little bit of an issue, and consistency, a little bit of an issue. Really good player. I like him. He's scrappy. Would be a perfect fit for them with their second team. And maybe squeezing in, we talked about Pedro Santos becoming a left back. Maybe Gannon becomes a wing option there. They do have a lot of good ones in Etienne, in Alexandru Matan, in Luis Diaz. They've got talent, but maybe he can squeeze in there. But I think a second team spot's a really good one for Coleman Gannon. Very cool. Thank you, GH. That's going to do it for us. We got UEFA Champions League today at 3:00. Big CBS has got a game. I believe the other one is CBS Sports Network and or Paramount Plus. Oh, Ricky Ricardo. I don't know if Cindy Parlow-Cohn was supposed to speak today about U.S. soccer media rights. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. Not sure. If she does, we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll do that. I promise you that much. But you've got UEFA Champions League today in the afternoon. You have ConcaChampions tonight, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, FS2 and 2 DN in Espanol. NYC in Costa Rica against Santos. Montreal in Mexico against Santos Laguna. We'll talk about all that tomorrow, along with any other updates that we get. Mike Conti will join us at 10 o'clock. That'll do it for us. Have a good rest of the day. Mucho platiyo.
Mucho platiyo.